Maya Okonkwo found the first photograph on a Tuesday morning, tucked between the pages of a library book she'd checked out the day before. It was old, at least 30 years, judging by the faded colors and the clothing. A family of 4 stood in front of a small house with blue shutters. A mother, a father, a teenage boy, and a younger girl, maybe 8 years old. They were smiling, arms around each other, the picture of happiness frozen in time. On the back, in neat handwriting, the Hendersons' 1987, before everything changed. Maya studied the photograph at her desk in the Seattle Public Library's Rare Books Department, where she worked as an archivist. Finding forgotten items in library books was common. Bookmarks, receipts, shopping lists, the occasional love letter. But this felt different, intentional. The photograph was too carefully placed, the message too cryptic. She set it aside and tried to focus on her work, cataloging a donation of historical documents from a local estate. But her eyes kept drifting back to the photograph. The little girl's gap-toothed smile, the way the mother's hand rested protectively on the daughter's shoulder, the father's proud stance, the teenage boy trying to look cool but unable to hide his grin. Before everything changed, what had changed? And why had someone left this in a library book? The next day, Maya found another photograph. Different library book, same era. This time, it was a wedding photo, a young couple cutting a cake, surrounded by cheering guests. On the back, Sarah and Tom, 1982. They promised forever. She kept her promise. The day after that, another. An elderly woman sitting in a garden holding a baby. Grandma Ruth meets her great-grandson, 1995. First time she smiled in 3 years. Then another. And another. Every day for a week, Maya found photographs in library books she checked out. Always from the 1980s or 1990s. Always with a cryptic message on the back. Always telling a fragment of a story that raised more questions than it answered. Maya started keeping them in a folder. She told herself it was professional curiosity. These were historical artifacts, after all, and as an archivist, it was her job to preserve and investigate such things. But the truth was simpler. She was lonely. And these mystery photographs gave her something to care about. At 32, Maya lived alone in a studio apartment with her cat, Oscar. She'd moved to Seattle 3 years ago after her mother died, wanting to escape the memories in Philadelphia. She'd built a quiet life, work, home, occasional drinks with colleagues, weekend visits to farmers markets, safe, controlled, isolated. The photographs were becoming an obsession. She started checking out random books just to see if they'd contain another image. She made spreadsheets tracking which books the photos appeared in, looking for patterns. She created a timeline of the photographs, trying to piece together the narrative. And then, 2 weeks after finding the first photograph, Maya found a note instead of a picture. It was typed on old-fashioned paper, the kind that had yellowed with age. Dear Finder, if you've been collecting these photographs, then you're meant to find what I've hidden. These are not random images. They are all connected. They all tell parts of one story. A story about loss, secrets, and the things we leave behind. Your next clue is in the place where stories begin for children. Look for the book about a bear who couldn't sleep. Inside, you'll find the truth about what happened to the Hendersons. You don't know me, But I know you're the kind of person who cares about forgotten things, who preserves what others discard, who understands that every photograph is a life, and every life matters. Please keep looking. Someone needs to know what happened. Someone needs to remember. MK. Maya's hands shook as she read the note 3 times. This wasn't just a random scattering of lost photographs. Someone had deliberately created a treasure hunt, and they'd chosen Maya, or someone like her, to solve it. The children's section. A book about a bear who couldn't sleep. Maya knew immediately which book it meant. Can't You Sleep, Little Bear? By Martin Waddell. It was a classic, one the library had multiple copies of. She went to the children's section after her shift, feeling ridiculous. A 32-year-old woman searching through picture books like a child on a scavenger hunt. But when she opened the oldest copy of the book, she found it. Not a photograph this time. A newspaper clipping, dated August 15th, 1987. Local family dies in house fire. James and Margaret Henderson, along with their son Daniel, 15, perished in a fire that destroyed their home on Maple Street early Sunday morning. Neighbors reported seeing flames around 3 a.m. Fire investigators believe a faulty electrical wire may have caused the blaze. The couple's daughter, Emily Henderson, 8, was staying with her grandmother at the time and was not present during the fire. She is reportedly staying with relatives. They were wonderful people, said neighbor Dorothy Chen, always helping others. It's such a tragedy. Maya stared at the clipping, her chest tight. The Hendersons from the first photograph. Before everything changed. This was what had changed. A fire that destroyed 3/4 of a family in a single night. But why was someone leaving this for Maya to find? And who was MK? She looked at the clipping again, and a detail caught her eye. At the bottom, in the same handwriting from the photographs, someone had written, Emily Henderson, find her. She's the one who needs to remember. Maya knew she should stop. This was becoming strange, possibly dangerous. Someone was manipulating her, leading her through an elaborate mystery for reasons she didn't understand. But she couldn't stop, because beneath the mystery was something profoundly sad. A little girl who'd lost her entire family in one terrible night. Emily Henderson, who would be in her 40s now, somewhere in the world, carrying that unimaginable grief. Maya started her search the way any good archivist would, with records. She searched online for Emily Henderson in Washington State. Hundreds of results. She narrowed it to the right age range, born around 1979. Still dozens of possibilities. She tried social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, nothing conclusive. Then she did something unorthodox. She posted in a Seattle history Facebook group, looking for information about the Henderson family who lived on Maple Street in 1987. 3 family members died in a house fire. Trying to locate Emily Henderson, who survived. Any leads appreciated. The response came within hours. An elderly woman named Dorothy Chen, the same neighbor quoted in the newspaper article, still lived in Seattle. I remember the Hendersons, Dorothy wrote. Sweet family. The fire was devastating. Little Emily went to live with her aunt in Spokane afterward. I lost touch, but I heard she moved away when she turned 18. Changed her name, I think. Wanted to escape the memories. Maya messaged back. Do you remember what she changed her name to? I heard she took her mother's maiden name. Margaret Henderson was born Margaret Cahale, Hawaiian heritage. So Emily might go by Emily Cahale now. Maya searched for Emily Cahale. Much smaller pool of results. And then she found it. Emily Cahale, age 43, living in Portland, Oregon. Worked as a middle school art teacher. Had a small website showcasing her students' work. The photo on the website showed a woman with kind eyes and graying dark hair, smiling in front of a classroom decorated with colorful paintings. She looked happy, settled, like someone who'd built a good life despite tragedy. Maya stared at the photo for a long time, wrestling with what to do. She had no right to intrude on this woman's life, no right to dredge up painful memories. But someone, MK, had gone to enormous lengths to make sure Maya found Emily Henderson. Why? Maya looked again at all the photographs she'd collected. 15 in total now. She laid them out on her apartment floor in chronological order, and for the first time she noticed something. They weren't all of the Hendersons. Some were of other families, other people. But in the background of several photos, so subtle she'd missed it initially, there was the same figure. A woman, slightly out of focus, always at the edges of the frame. Never the subject, but always present. Maya grabbed a magnifying glass and looked closer. The same woman appeared in 5 different photographs spanning different families and different years. She was young in the early photos, older in the later ones. In the most recent photograph from 1995, she looked to be in her early 60s, and in one photo, just barely visible, was a name tag on her shirt. M. Cahale, Seattle General Hospital. MK wasn't just initials. It was Margaret Cahale, Emily's mother. But that was impossible. Margaret Henderson had died in the fire in 1987. Maya's phone rang, making her jump. Unknown number. Hello? Maya Okonkwo? The voice was elderly, female, shaky with age. Yes. Who is this? My name is Ruth Cahale. I'm Emily Henderson's grandmother, Margaret's mother. You've been looking for Emily. Maya's heart raced. How did you... Dorothy Chen called me. Said someone was asking questions about the fire. I need to talk to you. In person. There are things you need to understand before you contact Emily. Things about what really happened that night. I don't understand. The newspaper said it was a fire. The newspaper got some things wrong. They got a lot wrong. Can you come to Seattle Grace Nursing Home tomorrow at 2 o'clock? Ask for me at the front desk. Please, it's important. The line went dead. Maya sat in her apartment surrounded by photographs of strangers, holding a phone that had just delivered an invitation to dive deeper into a mystery she didn't understand. She should walk away. Return the photographs to the library's lost and found. Forget about Emily Henderson and the fire and the mysterious MK, who might or might not be a woman who died 37 years ago. But Maya had learned something about herself through this strange scavenger hunt. She was tired of her safe, controlled, isolated life. She was tired of preserving other people's histories while creating none of her own. She was tired of being alone. These photographs, this mystery, they were the most alive she'd felt since her mother died. Tomorrow at 2 o'clock, she'd go to the nursing home. Seattle Grace. Nursing home smelled like disinfectant and cafeteria food and something else. Time itself slowly winding down. Maya signed in at the front desk and was directed to room 247. Ruth Cahaley was 93 years old, according to the board outside her room. She sat in a wheelchair by the window, a blanket across her lap, despite the warm afternoon. When Maya entered, the old woman turned, and Maya saw Emily's eyes in her face, the same kind expression, the same sadness underneath. "Thank you for coming," Ruth said. Her voice was stronger than it had sounded on the phone. "Sit, please. I don't have much time left, and there's so much to tell you." Maya sat in the visitor's chair. "Mrs. Cahaley? I don't understand what's happening. Someone has been leaving photographs in library books for me to find. They led me to your granddaughter. But the person leaving them signed their notes MK, and I found evidence suggesting it might be your daughter Margaret. But that's impossible because Margaret died in 1987. Ruth finished. Except she didn't. Not in the fire. That's what I need to tell you." Maya felt the room tilt slightly. "What?" Ruth pulled a photograph from the folder on her lap. It was Margaret Henderson, but older than in any of the pictures Maya had found. This Margaret looked to be in her 70s, standing in front of the Seattle Public Library's main branch. "This was taken 6 months ago," Ruth said. "My daughter is alive. She's been alive this whole time, and she's the one who's been leaving the photographs for you to find." "But the fire! The newspaper." "The fire happened," Ruth confirmed. "James and Daniel died that night. It was terrible, devastating, exactly as reported. But Margaret wasn't there. She had left the house earlier that evening. She and James had been fighting. She'd gone to stay at a hotel, planning to come back the next day to talk things through. She never got the chance. By the time she returned, her husband and son were dead, and Emily was at my house, where Margaret had dropped her off before the fight." Maya tried to process this. "But if Margaret survived, why did everyone think she died?" Ruth's face crumpled. "Because she let them think it. Because she couldn't live with the guilt." "Guilt? Of what? She wasn't even there." "Exactly," Ruth whispered. "She wasn't there. She'd left her family in anger over something trivial, some argument about money or schedules she can't even remember now. And while she was gone, sulking in a hotel room, her husband and son died in a fire she might have prevented if she'd been home, if she'd smelled the smoke, if she'd gotten them out." Ruth wiped her eyes. The guilt destroyed her. When the investigators couldn't find her body, when they assumed she'd died in the fire too, Margaret made a choice. She let people believe it. She changed her name back to her maiden name, Cahaley. She moved away. She let Emily grow up thinking she'd lost her whole family instead of just most of it. "Why?" Maya asked, horrified. "Why would she abandon her daughter?" "Because she thought Emily would be better off believing her mother died a hero trying to save her family than knowing the truth, that her mother had abandoned them for a night and they died because of it. Margaret convinced herself that Emily would hate her if she knew, that the guilt and shame would poison any relationship they might have." Ruth looked at the photograph of Margaret at the library. "She's been watching Emily from a distance for 37 years, following her life, making sure she was okay, but never approaching, never letting Emily know she survived. And now Margaret is dying. She is maybe 6 months, and she wants to see her daughter one more time before she goes, but she can't bring herself to do it. She's too afraid. So she created this scavenger hunt," Maya said slowly, understanding dawning. "She left the photographs for someone to find, someone who would care enough to investigate, someone who would find Emily and what? Tell her the truth? Yes, Ruth confirmed. Margaret asked me to call you once you'd gotten far enough. She wants you to tell Emily that her mother is alive. She's too much of a coward to do it herself. She thinks if the truth comes from a stranger, from someone with no connection to the family, Emily might be more willing to hear it. Maya stood up, pacing the small room. This is insane. You want me to tell a woman whose mother has been dead for 37 years? That actually surprised she's been alive this whole time? That she chose to let her daughter grow up as an orphan? That she's been watching from the shadows like some kind of ghost? Emily will be devastated, destroyed. How could your daughter do this? I've asked myself that question every day for 37 years, Ruth said quietly, and I don't have a good answer. Grief makes people do terrible things. Guilt makes them make terrible choices. My daughter thought she was protecting Emily. She was wrong, but she believed it at the time, and by the time she realized her mistake, so much time had passed that fixing it seemed impossible. Why now? Maya demanded. Why after all these years? Because Margaret is dying and she can't bear the thought of Emily spending the rest of her life not knowing her mother loved her, not knowing she survived. Even if Emily hates her, and she probably will, Margaret needs her daughter to know the truth, that the fire wasn't Emily's fault, that losing her family wasn't some cosmic punishment, that her mother is sorry, has been sorry every single day for 37 years. Maya sat back down, overwhelmed. I can't do this. I'm a stranger. I have no right. You're exactly the right person, Ruth interrupted. You're someone who cares about forgotten things, who understands that every photograph tells a story, who took the time to follow the clues and find the truth. Margaret chose you carefully. She watched you at the library for weeks before leaving the first photograph. She knew you'd care enough to investigate, that you'd be thorough and careful and kind. Ruth handed Maya a folder. Everything you need is in here. Margaret's full story, written in her own words, her medical records showing she's in hospice care for pancreatic cancer, her address, letters she's written to Emily over the years but never sent, and a request that you contact Emily, tell her the truth as gently as you can, and give her the choice of whether to see her mother before she dies. Maya held the folder without opening it. And if Emily says no, if she wants nothing to do with Margaret, then at least Emily will know the truth. That's all Margaret is asking for, the truth, after 37 years of lies. Maya looked at the photograph of Margaret outside the library. An elderly woman with sad eyes and Emily's face. A woman who'd made terrible choices and lived with them for nearly 4 decades. A woman who was dying and desperate for redemption. And Maya thought about her own mother, who died 3 years ago. How Maya would give anything for one more conversation, one more chance to say the things she'd left unsaid. How she'd been angry at her mother for years over stupid things that didn't matter. And now she'd never have the chance to forgive her. I'll do it, Maya said. But I'm doing it for Emily, not for Margaret. Emily deserves to know her mother is alive. She deserves the choice of whether to see her, whether to forgive her, whether to say goodbye. I'll give her that choice. But I'm not going to make this easy for Margaret. She doesn't deserve easy. Ruth nodded. Fair enough. Thank you, Maya. You're giving my daughter a chance she probably doesn't deserve. But you're giving my granddaughter something invaluable. The truth. Maya spent 2 days reading everything in the folder. Margaret's story written in shaky handwriting that got worse as the pages progressed. Evidence of her declining health. The letters to Emily, dozens of them, chronicling every milestone Margaret had watched from afar. Graduations, art shows, her wedding, the birth of her 2 children. Margaret had been there, in the background, always watching, never approaching. It was heartbreaking and infuriating in equal measure. Maya also researched how to deliver devastating news. She read articles about trauma, about long-buried family secrets, about reunions after decades apart. She prepared herself for every possible reaction: anger, denial, collapse, numbness. On Thursday evening, Maya drove to Portland. She'd called Emily's school and learned she taught an after-school art club on Thursdays. Maya arrived at 5:30 as the club was ending and students were being picked up. Emily Cahill stood in the doorway of her classroom, smiling and waving as children left. She wore paint-splattered jeans and a bright blue shirt. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy bun. She looked happy, content, like someone who'd healed from tragedy and built a beautiful life. Maya almost turned around, almost got back in her car and drove home, leaving Emily in her ignorance, her peace. But then she thought about Margaret, dying without her daughter knowing she was alive. About Emily, who might spend the rest of her life not knowing her mother had loved her enough to watch over her for nearly 4 decades. "Miss Cahill?" Maya approached. "I'm Maya Okonkwo. I'm an archivist from Seattle. Could I speak with you for a few minutes? It's about your family history." Emily's smile faltered slightly. "My family history?" "The Hendersons. I've been researching the 1987 fire. I found some information you might want to know about." Emily's face closed off. "I don't talk about that. I'm sorry you came all this way, but..." "Your mother is alive," Maya said. She hadn't meant to blurt it out. She'd prepared a gentle introduction, a careful revelation. But looking at Emily's face, so much like Margaret's, she couldn't do the slow reveal. Emily stared at her. "What?" "Margaret Henderson, your mother. She didn't die in the fire. She's alive. She's been alive this whole time. She's in Seattle in hospice care. She's dying, and she wants to see you." Emily grabbed the doorframe. "This is a sick joke. Get away from me." "It's not a joke. I have proof. Letters, photographs, medical records. Your mother has been watching you for 37 years. She knows about your husband, your children, your teaching career. She's attended your art shows. She's been there, Emily, just not in a way you could see." Emily's face cycled through emotions: shock, confusion, hope, anger. Finally, "If she's been alive, why didn't she tell me? Why did she let me think I was alone? I was 8 years old. I lost everyone. I had no one except my grandmother, and she was there the whole time." "She thought you'd be better off," Maya said, and then immediately regretted the phrasing. "She was wrong. She knows that now. She's been writing you letters for 37 years. Never sent them, but they're here." Maya held out the folder. Everything is here: her story, her reasons, her regrets, and an address where you can find her if you want to. Emily took the folder with shaking hands. "Why you? Why is a stranger telling me this?" "Because your mother was too afraid to tell you herself. She thought you'd refuse to see her if she contacted you directly. So she created a scavenger hunt, left photographs in library books, led me to the truth. She knew I'd be thorough, that I'd find you, that I'd give you the information and let you decide what to do with it." Emily opened the folder, saw her mother's handwriting on the first letter, and her knees buckled. Maya caught her, helped her to a chair in the classroom. Emily sat clutching the folder, sobbing deep, wrenching sobs that sounded like they'd been held in for decades. Maya sat beside her, silent, waiting. Finally, Emily looked up. Is she really dying? Pancreatic cancer, stage 4, 6 months at most, probably less. And she wants to see me. Yes. Does she deserve to see me? Emily asked. And the question wasn't rhetorical. She genuinely wanted Maya's opinion. Maya thought carefully. I don't think it's about what she deserves. I think it's about what you need. Do you need to see her? To hear her story in her own words? To tell her how much she hurt you? To forgive her or to refuse forgiveness, to say goodbye? Those are your choices. She doesn't get to choose. She lost that right when she let you believe she was dead. Emily wiped her eyes. I need time to process this, to read the letters, to decide. Of course, Maya said. She pulled out a card with Margaret's address and her own phone number. When you're ready, call me or don't. It's entirely your decision. I'm just the messenger. Emily took the card. Why did you do this? You don't know us. Why did you care enough to follow the photographs and find me? Maya thought about her answer. Because I know what it's like to lose a mother. Mine died 3 years ago. We'd been fighting about something stupid before she died. I never got to apologize, never got to say goodbye properly. I've lived with that regret every day since. And I thought, maybe I could give you something I never had. A chance. A choice. Even if you choose not to see her, at least you'll know the truth. You'll have that. Emily nodded slowly. Thank you, I think. I'm not sure yet. But thank you for caring about a stranger's pain. Maya left Emily in her classroom, surrounded by children's artwork and 37 years of letters from a mother she'd thought was dead. As Maya drove back to Seattle, she wondered if she'd done the right thing. She detonated a bomb in Emily's life, destroyed her narrative about her past, forced her to confront impossible questions. But she'd also given Emily a choice, and maybe that was worth the pain. A week passed. Maya returned to her regular life. Work at the library, evenings with Oscar, weekends at farmers' markets. She tried not to think about Emily or Margaret. Tried to tell herself she'd done her job as messenger, and now it was out of her hands. But she checked her phone constantly, jumped every time it rang. On the 8th day, Emily called. I read all the letters, she said without preamble. Every single one. 37 years of watching me from a distance, birthdays, graduations, my wedding. She was there for all of it, just hidden. Do you know how that makes me feel? Angry? Maya guessed. Furious, Emily confirmed, but also, I don't know. Loved? She loved me enough to watch over me, even though it must have been torture to see me and not approach. She loved me enough to make sure I was safe and happy. She just didn't love me enough to let me know she was alive. Have you decided whether you want to see her? Long silence, then. Will you come with me? I know that's a strange request. You're a stranger, but you're also the only person who knows the full story, and I think I need someone there who's not emotionally connected, someone who can ground me if I lose it. Maya hadn't expected this. Emily, I'm not a therapist or a counselor. I'm just an archivist who got pulled into your family drama. Exactly. You're neutral. You care, but you're not invested in a particular outcome. You won't push me to forgive her or refuse to forgive her. You'll just be there. Please? Maya thought about all the reasons to say no. This wasn't her family. This wasn't her business. She'd already done more than anyone could expect by finding Emily and delivering the truth. But she also thought about being alone when her own mother died, about how much she would have given for someone to sit with her in that grief. Okay, Maya said. When? Tomorrow I need to do this before I lose my courage. Can you pick me up in Portland at 9 a.m.? The next morning, Maya drove to Portland and picked up Emily. They drove to Seattle mostly in silence, both women lost in their own thoughts. Margaret's hospice facility was small and peaceful, tucked into a quiet neighborhood. Ruth had arranged everything. Margaret was expecting them, though she didn't know Emily had agreed to come. At the front desk, Emily froze. I can't do this. You can, Maya said gently. You've already done the hard part. The rest is just conversation, just two people talking. She can't hurt you anymore, Emily. The worst already happened. You survived it. You built a beautiful life. She can't take that away. Emily nodded, took a deep breath, and approached the desk. I'm here to see Margaret Cahill. The nurse smiled. Room 12. She'll be so happy to see you. They walked down the hall together. Outside room 12, Emily paused again. Maya squeezed her hand once, then stepped back. This moment was Emily's alone. Emily knocked. Come in. A weak voice called. Emily opened the door. Maya waited in the hall, giving them privacy but staying close in case Emily needed her. Through the thin walls, she could hear voices, Emily's strong and angry, Margaret's soft and broken. How could you? I thought I was protecting you. From what? From having a mother? From being loved? From the guilt? From knowing I left? From hating me? I don't hate you. I hate what you did. I hate that you robbed me of 37 years with my mother. But you, I don't even know you well enough to hate you. Silence. Then crying. Both women crying. Maya slid down the wall and sat on the floor, her own eyes wet. This was grief and love and anger and regret all tangled together. This was a family trying to find each other across decades of absence. The conversation lasted 3 hours. Maya sat in the hallway the entire time, occasionally getting coffee or water, but mostly just being present, being the tether Emily needed. Finally, the door opened. Emily emerged, her face blotchy from crying, but somehow lighter. She wants to meet you. She says she needs to thank you. Maya entered the room. Margaret Cahill was tiny in the hospital bed, ravaged by cancer, but her eyes, Emily's eyes, were clear and grateful. Thank you, Margaret whispered, for finding her, for giving me this chance. I didn't deserve it, but you gave it to me anyway. I did it for Emily, Maya said honestly, not for you. You hurt her. Deeply. That doesn't disappear just because you're dying. I know, Margaret said, but she's here. She's talking to me. That's more than I deserved. And it's because you cared about a stranger's story, because you followed the photographs, because you couldn't let a mystery go unsolved. Margaret smiled weakly. You're like me, you know. I was an archivist too, at the hospital. That's why I chose the library for the photographs. I knew someone who understood the importance of preserving stories would find them, would care enough to investigate. Maya hadn't known that. Why a scavenger hunt? Why not just tell Emily directly? Because I'm a coward, Margaret said simply. And because I needed to know that whoever told Emily would do it right, would give her all the information and let her choose. I couldn't trust myself to do that, but I could trust someone who cared about truth, about history, about making sure nothing is forgotten. Emily sat on the edge of the bed and took her mother's hand. I'm not ready to forgive you. That might take years, or it might never come. But I'm here, and I'll keep coming, for however long you have left. Because you're my mother, and I loved you for 8 years before I lost you. Maybe we can find a way to love each other again. Margaret squeezed her daughter's hand, tears streaming down her face. That's all I wanted, all I needed. Thank you, baby girl. Thank you for giving me a chance. Margaret died 6 weeks later, on a quiet Tuesday morning with Emily holding her hand. In those 6 weeks, Emily visited nearly every day, sometimes bringing her husband and children. They talked about everything. The good memories before the fire, the years of separation, the life Emily had built. Margaret got to know her grandchildren, got to see that Emily had become exactly the kind of person Margaret had hoped she'd become. Kind, creative, resilient, loving. It wasn't complete healing. Emily was still angry, still grieved the 37 years they'd lost. But they had honesty. They had presence. They had truth. And when Margaret died, Emily was able to grieve properly this time. Not the traumatic grief of an 8-year-old losing her entire family, but the complex grief of an adult losing a mother she'd only recently found again. Maya attended the funeral. She'd become unexpectedly close to Emily over those 6 weeks, visiting Margaret together, talking in coffee shops afterward, processing the impossibility of the situation. At the reception after the funeral, Emily pulled Maya aside. My mother left you something. She handed Maya a small box. Inside was a leather journal and a note. Dear Maya, the note read in Margaret's shaky handwriting. Thank you for giving me back my daughter. I have nothing of value to leave you except this. My journal from the years I spent watching Emily from afar. I documented everything, every milestone, every moment I witnessed, but couldn't participate in. It's the story of a mother's love expressed through absence, a chronicle of watching instead of doing. I don't know if it's valuable to anyone but me, but I wanted you to have it. You understand the importance of preserving stories, even painful ones. Maybe someday you'll find a use for it. Or maybe you'll just know that someone's life was witnessed, that nothing was forgotten. With gratitude and regret, Margaret Cahill. Maya opened the journal. Page after page of meticulous notes. October 12th, 1995. Emily's first art show at her high school. She displayed a painting of a house with blue shutters. Our house, she remembers. She's processing the loss through art. I'm so proud of her. June 3rd, 2005. Emily's wedding. She married a kind man named David who looks at her the way James used to look at me. She's happy. That's all I ever wanted. I stood in the back of the church. No one knew me, but I was there. Dozens of entries, years of documentation. A mother's love, preserved in ink and paper. She wanted you to have it, Emily said, because she said you'd understand its value. Not everyone would. But an archivist, someone who spends their life preserving other people's histories, She said you'd know what to do with it. Maya held the journal carefully. What do you want me to do with it? Emily thought for a moment. Keep it. Add it to your collection. Someday maybe there will be an archive of complicated family stories. Stories of loss and separation and unlikely reunions. This could be part of that, a reminder that families are messy and people make terrible choices, but love persists anyway. Over the next year, Maya did exactly that. She created a small archive at the Seattle Public Library called the Memory Keeper Collection. It housed Margaret's journal, the photographs from the scavenger hunt, the letters Margaret had written but never sent, and a full accounting of the Henderson family tragedy and reunion. But she also expanded it. She put out a call for other stories. Families separated by choice or circumstance, reunions after years apart, love that persisted through absence. People donated letters, photographs, journals. The collection grew, and Maya found purpose in it. She'd spent 3 years in Seattle feeling isolated and alone, going through the motions of a life without connection. The Henderson family mystery had awakened something in her, a desire to engage with the world, to help people preserve and tell their stories, to create meaning from loss. She started a weekly gathering at the library called Memory Keepers. People came to share stories of lost family members, to process complicated grief, to find community with others who understood that family was messy and love was complicated. Emily drove up from Portland once a month to attend. So did Ruth, Margaret's mother, who at 94 was still sharp and determined to see her granddaughter as often as possible. And Maya, who'd thought she was done with family after her mother died, found herself part of something new. Not a traditional family, but a chosen one. A community of people bound by the understanding that loss was universal, that everyone had complicated histories, that the work of remembering was sacred. 2 years after finding the first photograph, Maya stood in the library at a Memory Keepers meeting, looking around at the 20 people gathered to share their stories. Emily was there with her husband. Ruth was there in her wheelchair, holding court with a group of elderly women sharing stories of their own. And for the first time since her mother died, Maya felt like she belonged somewhere, like she'd found her purpose. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Is this the person who runs the Memory Keeper collection? I have a story to share. My sister and I were separated in foster care 40 years ago. I've been looking for her ever since. Can you help? Maya smiled and typed back. Yes. Come to the library tomorrow at 2 p.m. Bring any photographs or documents you have. We'll figure this out together. Because that's what Maya did now. She found lost people. She preserved forgotten stories. She helped families, biological and chosen, find their way back to each other. She was a memory keeper. And every memory, every story, every photograph mattered. Just like Margaret had known it would. 5 years after the Henderson reunion, Maya received a package in the mail. Inside was a photograph and a letter. The photograph showed a family of 6 gathered around a table. Emily and her husband David, their 2 children. Ruth in her wheelchair, and Emily's mother-in-law. They were smiling, laughing, clearly in the middle of a celebration. The letter was from Emily. Dear Maya, this photo was taken at Thanksgiving last year. It's the first holiday in 37 years where I haven't felt the absence of my parents and brother quite so acutely. I still miss them. I always will. But now I have this family, this moment, this joy. I wanted you to have this photograph because you're part of this story. You're the reason I got those last 6 weeks with my mother. You're the reason I know she loved me even when I thought I was alone. You're the reason my children got to meet their grandmother before she died. But more than that, you've shown me something important, that the work of remembering matters, that preserving stories matters, that helping people find each other matters. I'm submitting this photograph to the Memory Keeper collection. On the back, I've written, "The Henderson Cahill family, 2024, after everything changed and changed again, built from loss, held together by choice, a family that shouldn't exist but does anyway. Thank you for giving us a second chance at being a family. Thank you for caring about a stranger's pain. Thank you for being the kind of person who follows clues and solves mysteries and refuses to let any story be forgotten. You're a memory keeper. And because of you, our family's memory is complete. With love and gratitude, Emily." Maya added the photograph to the collection, placing it right beside the original Henderson family photo from 1987. Before everything changed, and after everything changed and changed again. 2 photographs, one family, 37 years apart, connected by loss, separated by fear, reunited by one archivist who couldn't let a mystery go unsolved. Maya looked at the 2 photos side by side and thought about Margaret, about Emily, about all the complicated families in the Memory Keeper collection, about her own mother, who she still missed every day but had learned to remember with more love than regret. And she understood something fundamental. We are all memory keepers in our own way. We preserve the stories that matter to us. We keep alive the people we've lost. We pass on the lessons we've learned. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, we get to help others do the same. Maya picked up a blank recipe card. She'd started using them to catalog new additions to the collection and wrote, "The Henderson Family Photographs, donated by Emily Cahill, 2024. A story of loss, absence, reunion, and the power of truth. A reminder that it's never too late to tell someone you love them. Never too late to come home. Never too late to remember." She filed it carefully in the collection and turned back to her work. There were more stories to preserve, more families to help, more memories to keep. And Maya was ready.